academy manager now for 14 months. What's the first year and 2 months been like?
It's been really good. It's been really challenging but really exciting. As you know, the academy's had quite a stable staffing structure with Robbo and myself, Jeremy having been here for many years, and then last year we lost Jeremy and then Robbo went up to the first team, all started to move up. So it's been pretty turbulent, but what it's enabled others to do is step up to the forefront and become what we call guardians of the academy. So you've got James, you've got Rob, you've got Jack Matthews, all experienced members of staff who now have to step up and start to really represent and make sure the values of the academy that's got us to where we are now are carried through.
In terms of the start of the season, it's things getting back into the swing of things after lockdown, and players and preparing for games and stuff like that. What's it been like so far since the start of the season?
Yeah, it's been pretty hectic. There's not a manual to deal with a world pandemic that is COVID, and at one stage it was pretty touch and go whether or not we were going to come back, and if we were, under what conditions. So we've done a lot of work so from March onwards we've done a lot of work behind the scenes in preparation for, we had like a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and we eventually finally got the under 18s back in under very strict conditions in early August, with the younger boys following a couple of weeks later, and then finally the rest of the academy at the end of August. So by the end of August, beginning of September, we had everyone back in, but obviously working under strict conditions. And it was very new to us all in terms of how sessions would run, how we entered buildings, exited buildings, even if we could use buildings. So there's a lot of hurdles to jump over, but there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes with Michael Cook and Elliot Powell, and working with Bob Sherwood, who's the club health and safety and welfare officer. It was massive, and they played a massive part in making sure we came back into the programme safely.
You would normally provide us with a monthly academy roundup, and especially during lockdown it was very interesting to read. What have been the main things going on that you can sum up for us so far this season?
So whilst we were off season, as you know, we wanted to try and make sure the boys were engaged, but I think the world went Zoom heavy with, whether that be schools or clubs, so we were very conscious of how much we wanted to give the boys and how much time off we wanted to give them. But we've done a lot of CPD workshops with staff and players. We had external speakers speaking, such as Chris Powell, Davies Charles, as you know, and we had a lot of internal speakers speaking just to make sure we were prepared for us to come back. Like I said, we came back in early August. The under 18s had a good pre-season. We also, because we ran with smaller squads, it's also enabled some of the younger boys to step up and get experience early on, and that kind of followed through. We really want to make sure, with all the changes that are happening, Seb Brown now leaving, Jeremy and Rob obviously, having less of an impact on the academy, we want to make sure that we really keep our core elements really strong, and we make sure we hold and carry the AFC Wimbledon story and tradition moving forward. And to do that, we've had to do a lot of CPD and workshops with new staff to make sure they understand the club that they're coming into, what we expect from them when they're out on the training ground, and the messages that are key to us.
In terms of personnel, of course, Matthew Cox calls up to the England under-18s, big academy success story. Also as a young lad playing for Wales.
Yeah,
any other little snippets where players are getting called up and that type of thing?
Yeah, we've had a few boys called up and getting international recognition. So Matt Cox, as you said, you've got Morgan Williams. We've got one or two others which I don't really want to name.
Yeah.
But what's happening as we're becoming more known, becoming more successful, is our boys are being recognised. If not at international level, then definitely national level, where you've got clubs showing and declaring more interest in our boys. But I think that's testimonial to all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes, not myself, but James, Robbo, Anthony, Rob, I would say Seb, but Seb now leaving, but there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes that makes sure when the boys come into our programme, they get the best programme possible.
What does that mean for the young lads trying to follow in their footsteps when you see news like with Matthew?
Yeah, Matthew was a pivotal one for us, if I'm honest, because I think what it showed is, we've got a talent here that has been recognised. There was interest from other clubs, but we managed to keep him. And with the club moving to a new stadium, and with the academy hopefully forming a massive part of the club's future, it was massive for us for Coxie to remain with us. And so I hope the message has been sent out not just outside the club but also inside the club, to the boys that, you know, this is a place where you can develop, where you can get a chance, and if you roll your sleeves up and put your head down, things can happen.
That leads on to my next question about how much of a challenge is it as a smaller club compared to Chelsea's, that kind of club, that echelon club, to keep young talent and also to bring more talent in?
It's very challenging. What I will say is we are situated in probably the most populated part of the country, so there are a lot of boys that want to play football. However, as you've alluded to, clubs are expanding their talent ID and recruitment areas, so it's becoming more challenging. But I think that's why we have to make sure that the Wimbledon story stays true, and why external people coming into the club, when they come to the club, you know, they feel like they're part of something special. You know, moving to the new Plough Lane, having a first team manager that plays young players, and seeing a pathway there, I think those are the things that will stand us out. And you know, we have had players turn down so-called bigger clubs to stay with us, and we want to strengthen that even moving forward. You know, we want to make sure that boys see Wimbledon as a place to develop, to forge a career, and they want to be part of.
And it's a big thing, building something at the academy. Robbo, Jeremy left a legacy. What about the coaches now? You're bringing through new ideas all the time and how to evolve this academy.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of meetings in regards to what next. You know, one thing that we want to do, as you said, is we want to make sure we stay true to what we have been and what we are, and we make sure, you know, our core elements remain the same, and the boys understand the fantastic story they're part of. But you know, moving forward, what do we want to do? So you know, so the player-led approach that we started at the back end of last season, we want to implement it more throughout the younger age groups, and to make sure that we become nationally recognised as a development programme. Richmond Park, which is something that's been publicised and something that's been aligned to the club and to the academy. We've looked at it this season and said, right, how can we make it bigger and better? So we're currently in plans to try and carry that throughout. So we're going to get the under-9s one in part of Richmond Park, which people go, you know, that's absolutely mad. You know, why are you making young boys doing fitness training or fitness development? It's fitness, but it's also psychological. You know, it's also about breaking down barriers and having growth mindsets, and making sure that, you know, when you want to stop and when there is a challenge in front of you, the message is to keep going. So it's just things like that we want to bring to the forefront more. We want to evolve, but at the same time, we want to make sure that when people see the badge Wimbledon and come across the badge Wimbledon, they know what it means.
Just finally, Seb Brown, he's leaving. You mentioned it before. What can you say about his contribution?
I think the word legend is loosely used sometimes, but I think in his case, he's a legend. You know, he's a very humble, hard-working person. So humble, in fact, some people don't even recognise who he is. So we was doing pre-season training a few weeks ago with the under-18s, and I said to some of the staff, "You do understand who Seb Brown is?" And you know, so I got him to YouTube him when he went. I think he went and heated up his lunch. And when they come back, they were like in awe of like who Seb Brown was. You know, they're watching his clips and stuff. So he's very humble. He doesn't really mention it much, but you know, he is a legend, and it's people like him who have got us to where we are today. Whether that's on the first team or the influence he has behind the scenes.